That's how it was when I came in here too.
Brother Brooks up there, I'm looking right now.
There's another there. There's another chick. From Stevens. I know that it's Stevens. Is that okay? No. Right.
Ms. Candace, can you, unmute yourself? Put yourself on the screen. Here you go.
Okay, I think we're just waiting for the vice chair, who's serving vice chair tonight.
Can you see us? Yeah. You see?
I never do.
I mean, so-
Thank you. That's how she do it.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I cannot hear.
Hello? Can you hear us?
I heard that. It's quite faint.
Jill, how about this? Can you hear
Okay,
that?
yes, I can hear that.
Can you hear us on this side?
Yes, I heard you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, now. We're gonna bring that on.
You call it an owl. Owl. What do you call it, an owl?
Has 3 different cameras on. Yeah. You're talking, she's talking.
It is now 5:38. We're gonna call this special call meeting to order. And the agenda is as follows. Number 1, call to order. Number 2, approval of agenda. Number 3, discussion with state board. Number 4, closed session. And number 5, adjournment.
Excuse me, we don't have a agenda. Let me get it. Okay.
At this time, I would like to have the agenda approved tonight. Then, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? I move that we approve the agenda as printed. It's been motion to have the agenda printed by Ms. Kimberly Robinson and seconded by Ms. Donna Harrison. Are there any questions? No question? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda has been approved. I want to start by thanking the state board members for being with us tonight. For members of the public who may be watching, the purpose of this meeting is to have a discussion with the state board members about school improvement and student achievement in Weldon City Schools. I'm looking forward to a respectful, collaborative discussion that is focused on doing what's best for our students and our community. I'm particularly interested in hearing from the state board members about how they and DPI can support Weldon City Schools and our goals to raise student achievement and be a model district for our state. With that, I turn it over to the state board members to open our discussion. Please be sure to introduce yourselves for all of those that are watching and listening tonight. And we'll start by,
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you for that very good introduction to our meeting. I appreciate those comments and thoughts. My name is Alan Duncan. I'm a member of the state board, along with my colleague, Wendell Hall, and our other colleague, who is attending virtually, Jill Camden. And our board attorney, who many of you know, is Allison Schaefer, and she is here tonight also. So we thank you all for being here, and we appreciate this time that we will have together. And as you said, it should be a discussion. I'm going to ask to be able to make some remarks, if I could, that I think are important for you to hear, and then we're very interested in what you might have to say or comment about there. We have worked together for few months at this point. And I think the one thing that comes through is there's a sincerity among board members for Weldon City Schools to succeed. And one thing that's really striking is the number of connections the board members have with Weldon City Schools. Having gone there, having children there, having family members there, the connections are very tight, and they're not uniform for everybody, but they're very tight across the board, and that was pretty striking for all of us. And many of you have worked hard for a long time for success for the Weldon City Schools and have been on the board for a long time, and others are newer to the task, but no less committed and no less desirous of great outcomes for the students in Weldon City Schools. We want the same. And we came in an effort to be collaborative and supportive and try to find the best ways to go about doing that. We have met, and I think we have watched for a while, see where things are going. And I'll come back to this, but our commitment was to time when you were looking for an interim superintendent to bring you candidates who were very strong candidates, but let you have the opportunity to interview and make a decision as to who should be the best candidate to lead the district during the interim time frame. I think we met our commitment. We did bring good candidates for you, very, very strong candidates for you to review, and you selected one to lead. And I think it's important to pause here to say to lead. The superintendent necessarily has to lead, and particularly in a situation where we are working with you in a supportive and collaborative way, some level of deference needs to be given to whatever the superintendent's recommendations might be so that we can try to move forward. One of the things I've found a lot of times with members, and I think some of you may feel this as well, you have a very strong emotional commitment to this school district and for the success of it. You have worked hard for many years on. But over a period of time, there are times when there's emotions that enter into it, probably because you want it badly. There's emotions where you don't always see eye to eye. That's what the issues are. And there's a level of pressure that has gradually risen because it's going on for a period of time when the schools have not been as successful as the people in this city want. And that is something that sort of overlays everything that's going on with the district and certainly within the community. And we are sensitive to that fact. But we also know that we're not going to get for our students what we want if we don't change them. And so it just can't be the way we've been doing it. Not tried that for a long time with people, sincerity and commitment, and it has not got to the place where we want this community to be, and where, more importantly, you want this community to be. And so sometimes we have to take a hard thing, which is to check our thought processes and let somebody who's got a lot of experience come in to help lead us to a place where we try to get to a better place ultimately for our students. And sometimes that means putting up with some decisions that may not be the ones that come naturally to you, or may not have been the way we have done it for a long period of time here. They're just decisions that maybe need to be made. We need to sort of create a new dynamic for how we go forward. Because the one thing we know is the dynamic we've been using has not gotten students where we desperately, everybody in this room desperately. So with that background, I want to go through a couple of things. I want to talk about first the law, which is, as it happens, I'm a lawyer, but Schaefer's our official lawyer. I'm here support member. But I want to talk about the state constitution and the statutes from it too, and then move to the factual situation here, and then tell you where we as a committee, this turnaround committee, the board, are in terms of what recommendations we intend to make to the board. And then obviously we're most interested in your comments and reactions. So the school-age children enrolled in public schools are constitutionally entitled to the opportunity to receive a sound basic education. Everybody's heard of the Leandro case and work with education. That's what the Leandro case sets out. That principle is uncontested. There's still contests going on about funding. There's not a contest going on about every student deserves a constitutionally sound basic education. State Board of Education has, under the Constitution, the constitutional duty to ensure that students are receiving the educational opportunities to which they are entitled. You may not know this, but just North Carolina is the only state that has the State Board of Education in its state constitution. There are other states, obviously, that have boards of education, but North Carolina is the only one where the Board of Education is named and called out in the state constitution. And there are other very important departments within state government that are not mentioned at all in the state constitution. So it's some indication of the historical significance to our forebears that education really matters in this state. And so we necessarily all take it seriously. While local school boards are charged with educating the students enrolled in their schools, our Supreme Court, North Carolina Supreme Court, has made it clear that the ultimate responsibility rests with the state of North Carolina itself, acting through the State Board of Education. We take that duty seriously. It's a constitutional duty, it's a constitutional obligation. We necessarily take it very seriously. When data shows that students in a school district are not receiving these opportunities as evidenced by low achievement scores in the district, then it is a constitutional, statutory, and ethical duty of the state board to intervene. And our approach for intervening is always sought to be, and we will continue to seek to be, whatever approach we go forward, is to collaborate and support the local, collaborate with and support the local districts. The state legislature outlines the legal mechanisms the state board may use to fulfill its duties. North Carolina General Statute Section 115C-105.38C allows the state board to appoint an interim superintendent in a local school unit upon identification of more than half the schools in that unit as being low performing. It further allows the state board to assign any of the powers and duties of the local superintendent and the local finance officer to the interim superintendent that the board considered necessary or appropriate to improve student performance. Further, if the state board appoints an interim superintendent and subsequently determines that the local board of education has failed to fully cooperate with the interim superintendent, or has otherwise caused some hindrance to the utility or ability of the interim superintendent to improve student performance in the school unit, the state board may suspend any of the powers and duties of the local board of education as necessary or appropriate to improve student performance. Finally, on this legal and constitutional background, those measures are not sufficient. The state board may recommend the legislature that governance changes be made by the legislature for the local school district. Now, I said all that out, not to say we're going to do all of those things as we have a discussion tonight, but it's important that you know what the constitutional and legal obligations are, statutory obligations, which again, like you take seriously your legal obligations to the local board, we obviously also take very seriously those obligations to the state board. The State Board of Education policy, that is the policy that governs the work that we do, is set out in a policy DSTR-041, which addresses the factors that the state board will consider in appointing an interim superintendent. These factors include A, length of time the district or schools have been continually low performing. B, the turnover rate of local superintendents in the district. C, documented financial concerns. D, non-compliance with federal or state legal requirements. And E, whether the relationship between the superintendent and the local board of education is hindering the district's ability to improve student performance. Those are all set forth in board policy. There are other matters set forth in board policy, but specifically as the interim superintendents, I thought that was important to lift that up so that you could have that consideration and thought. So the board, as you know, we've discussed, has concerns about the poor academic performance as well as the operation and governance of the Weldon City Schools. The state board and state superintendent have been and remain very concerned about the consistent and ongoing poor academic performance of the Weldon City Schools. The district has been a low performing school district for almost all of the last 10 years, And the student achievement results for this past year remain what I think you would say are unacceptably low. Not something that you want for your students and you want to be in a different place. And you've articulated that to us. And we believe you. Yeah, and I'm not going to try to give a lot of data on this because I know you as a board are familiar with that. Part of what you're looking at carefully, no doubt. You consistently had a high turnover rate of your superintendent and other key staff members, including the finance officer and your human resources. These are critical positions, and if we don't have consistency in a superintendent, then you're going to have problems in the district. If you don't have consistency with the chief financial officer, you will have problems in the district. Even if you have a great superintendent, but you don't have a competent chief financial officer, the superintendent will not be able to perform at the level that's necessary to give you the leadership and support and results that you want to see for your students. These are key positions, and unfortunately, there has not been stability, but rather be more characterized as instability in terms of these key positions. As a result of these concerns, acting on behalf of the state board, and by the way, I'm not assessing fault on that. I'm just stating the fact. There's been instability, and I realize there's superintendents that can be involved in that, and there's board processes and thought that's a two-way street. And I'm not trying to identify whether it's one way or the other. I'm saying the fact is that's what's occurred. And the fact is the board knows we brought you good, state board knows we brought you good candidates who really are experienced and have the knowledge to lead. And I keep coming back to that word to lead. That's what requires, that's what will change the district. It is truly what does it. Often not with 100% decisions that are popular. That does not always come with it, but sometimes very necessary. As a result of these concerns, acting on behalf of the state board, the members of the State Board of Education who are appearing here today, and this is the turnaround committee for the state. It's not specific to you, and we work in other districts, as you likely already know. We are appearing here today in order to meet with your board. Similarly, as we met with different groups of your board leaders earlier this year, in terms of talking about these issues and working through them, and coming up with some ideas about how we can proceed. We encourage you to find and pledge to support you in finding and hiring an experienced interim superintendent who could help implement much needed change in your school district. I believe, and I hope you do too, that we make good that pledge of our support, because you have a very fine and very experienced interim superintendent here who knows how to lead and who knows how to do this job. You are fortunate enough to have such an excellent interim superintendent in place now. And as I said, extremely experienced, has knowledge of how to produce excellent academic results, and knows how to run the business to support academic achievement and growth. You know, there's two aspects. You want to have the curriculum instruction side. You also want to have the business and support side. Both have to work together for a successful school district. And this interim superintendent has that background. However, nothing in Weldon improves unless you support Dr. Shop's recommendations and work together as a board. If ever there's a time for this board to come together and work together, and I know that's been, I mean, y'all have been candid about this. That's been a struggle along the way. I mean, I know that has not always been an easy thing, and there have been moments when there has been discord and a lack of agreement, and sometimes pretty strong lack of agreement by people. If ever there's a time to come together with students, we are at that time. And so seeing such disagreements and observing such disagreements and divisions among the board in your public board meetings and hearing reports about continuing difficulty in hiring qualified and excellent people to fill key positions has been of concern to our board. And this, I don't have to say this to the other men, this simply can't continue. This cannot keep going on because we won't, none of us will get it. It's not about anybody in this room. It's about our children. Therefore, it is our intent to recommend to the State Board of Education at its meeting on Thursday of this week, July 11th, that the state board officially appoint Dr. Shotwell as the state board's interim superintendent. Dr. Shotwell will continue to work as the interim superintendent for the Weldon City Schools at the state board's direction. He will also be given the direction to perform the duties of finance officer as permitted by statute. He will be answering directly to the state board as well as to your board. If your board fails to implement the changes that Dr. Shotwell recommends, that's when the other statutory considerations come into play. And in that situation, the state board will have no choice but to intervene and determine whether to take over the governance of your school district and suspend the duties of your local board. Now, said that, you just say, we don't want to get there. We really do not want to get there. So I'm saying where we sit, saying what the forecast would be. I'm also telling you as strong as I know how, it's not a place where we want to be because we value participation, but we know you've got to come together to give the kind of support kids that they need. To the extent that we don't want to take this action, we will do it if we believe it's necessary. And that's the place where we really. The children of Weldon City Schools in your community deserve the very best. I appreciate those remarks that you made to start our meeting today, which is exactly that. It is our hope and expectation that your board will work tirelessly alongside Dr. Shaw, hand in hand and in conjunction with Dr. In our expectation that we will begin a long road toward school. This is not going to happen in years, but it does happen. The systemic changes set a course, and then hard work brings it. And this won't happen without your fellow board members. We said before that we want partnership. I want to be clear, we still very much as a state board want partnership with you. But this board cannot revert to business as usual. We're in a place where this is not business as usual. I know you feel in your hearts, I know you don't feel it's not business as usual. It can't be business as usual. In fire department parlance, we're at a place of a five-alarm fire for our kids. We need to treat it with that level of urgency and that level of discipline and thought and focus on serving our children. The only thing that matters here now, the only thing is what's in the best interest of our children. If there are any adult issues that any of us have that trouble working through, we've got to set them to the side. Because honestly, they just don't matter. What matters is how we help our kids. What do we do to support them? We hope that you will join us with this singular focus and join us in fulfilling that mission of serving our children in this way. Our children deserve nothing less. Nothing. For those who have the least, we owe the most. Our children. And we should never forget that. And that's why we should have our children first at all times. And not whatever our other issues are that may distract us from that singular focus on their needs. So with that background, I'd like to read what we're going to recommend, set out what we'll recommend to our colleagues on the state board. So that you will know it and be able to comment. This working group plans to recommend to the full State Board of Education at the State Board of Education meeting on Thursday, July 11th, it appoint Dr. Rodney Shotwell as the State Board's interim superintendent. This is permitted by law because the Weldon City Schools is a chronically low-performing school district. There are several reasons for this recommendation. First, it will allow the state board to assign to Dr. Shotwell the duties of a finance officer, which is necessary in light of the fact that there is not currently a finance officer employed by the Weldon City Schools. Second, it will allow the state board to exercise greater control of the administration of the school district. The state board's contract with Dr. Shotwell will continue the same salary and benefits for Dr. Shotwell that the Weldon City School Board has approved for Dr. Shotwell's current contract with the Weldon Board. Dr. Shotwell, as the person assuming the duties of finance officer of the Weldon City Schools, will be directed by the state board to forward to DPI the amount of monthly funds that it currently has allocated to pay Dr. Shotwell's salary. And we ask that you join in that.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah. Dr. Shotwell, as the person assuming the duties of finance officer, that by statute, he will be assigned chief financial officer duty for the interim. Will be directed by the state board to forward to the Department of Public Instruction the amount of monthly funding that it currently has allocated to pay Dr. Shotwell's salary. And that is, I'm talking about the state allocation, obviously, and the local supplement that is paid both those items. That is the entirety of what is going to be. Weldon City Schools will also be required to provide Dr. Shotwell reimbursement for expenses incurred or other benefits consistent with its current contract with Dr. Shotwell. Dr. Shotwell will be a temporary employee of DPI and shall report to the state board, but is expected to carry out the duties of a local superintendent with respect to the Weldon City Schools. The Weldon City School Board will retain its authority to act on Dr. Shotwell's recommendations. However, the Weldon City School Board is required to cooperate with Dr. Shotwell in fulfilling its duties. And by that, I think we're trying to emphasize, please take his recommendations very seriously. They are well considered, they're thoughtful, these are posts that are needed. And I will say candidly, some reports that we've heard are, would you bring us 2 or 3 candidates and we'll pick one from that? And I need to say to you by state law, that's not the way it works. Superintendent brings a candidate to you, and you can either accept or not accept that candidate. That is within your purview. You may have specific reasons why that candidate, specific reasons, I mean specific good faith, good reasons why that candidate may not be the right candidate in your minds, which should be discussed. And perhaps other board members would clarify, no, that's not exactly right. You may have heard that, but that's not true. We're not going on rumor and innuendo with these kinds of things. These are important employment decisions for which the potential employee's privacy needs to be greatly respected. And if a recommendation is coming in the district where we need to hire good people, it's important that be taken very seriously. And that's the way the board views this, our board views this. If the state board finds that the Weldon board has failed to cooperate with Dr. Shaw, or as the state board's interim superintendent, or has otherwise hindered the ability to improve student performance in school, knowing you don't want to do that, but it can't happen. It may suspend any of the powers and duties of the local that is necessary or appropriate to improve the district's student performance duties for its benefit. Again, as I said before, that's consistent with the statutory language that are viewed. We don't want to be there. We do not want to be there. We want to be able to support collaboration. But I want you to know we are ready to go. That's what we have to do. Again, we don't want to be there. We want you to play the key role that you can play in a unified manner. Turn this around. Those are the recommendations that we will make. I do need to say, Dr. Shaw has not been the person trying to influence or cause these kinds of recommendations. I think it's important to say that because his name is mentioned several times in the recommendations. This is from the state board, solely from the state board. Obviously, the state board knows Dr. Shotwell, knows his background and experience, and recommended him as one of the candidates for you to interview. But it's not Dr. Shotwell who's pushing these recommendations at all. This is the state board that's doing that. So I think it's important for me to say that as we go through this. He is here and committed to serve you as a board and to serve the students and the educators of this district. Now spoken long enough, you're probably tired of hearing me. So Mr. Paul and Ms. Cameron, if they have anything to say, then we'd love to discussion with you. Yeah. Jill, can you hear me?
We can't hear you.
You're on.
Yes, you
Sorry, I had it muted and I couldn't get it unmuted. I do hear you.
Do you have any comments you want to add at this point, Jill?
I do not. I'm very interested to have a further discussion with the board about this, but I have nothing to add to what you just presented, Alan.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really, I'm like Jill. I don't have too much to say after your opening comments, but I think it laid out where we are, what we are here. No doubt about that. But I do want to say to the board, I know where you are. I'm a sitting board member locally. I'm the vice chair. And this time of the year, it's hard times. But there are two words that we talk about. We mentioned these words from the very beginning, action and change. Those are two words. Working together and making some changes as we go along in order to get to that same place that you want to be with your children. Those 700 plus pre-K-12 or K-12 students that we have here in Weldon City Schools. I also am unique because I sit here. Because I have some idea of the community. And some of you I'm sitting around looking, you were here then. You were here then. And I know where you come. I know what you want. But we have to go at it together. I was thinking this morning, as I was at another meeting this morning, and I was thinking, you know what, one day, school opens next month. Next month. All across the state, the 90% of the schools open next month. And if we're going to move forward together, we got to make some decisions. Our backs up against the wall. We got to work together. And we got to move forward in a collaborative manner. And find out that everyone walk out that door feeling that they made a difference tonight or this afternoon. And that's what I want. But I do know now, occasionally, I say occasionally, I do tune into your board meetings. I don't sit there and wait for a couple of, I'll be sitting in my office and I'll be flipping and it'll come to me. And I watch your board meeting. That's why I was so surprised when I saw this room versus the room that's shown on the screen because it's a bigger room, and all that kind of good stuff. But I do hear. I was looking at your during your meeting last time. Yeah, last meeting, not the one you had here recently, but last. But I tell you the truth, when you went back into closed session at 9:30, I cut it off. I went on and got in the in bed. But I listened to some things that were going on, some questions that were asked, some emotional issues with getting into it. And I'm just saying, sometimes we just got to take a deep breath, step back, and look at the big picture. And a lot of the things that the chairman was talking about as far as action the board can take, I hope we don't get that true level and pray we don't have to get to that point. Because I think as adults and as caring individual that you are, but I can tell you this, you didn't run for the board for the money. I ain't gonna believe that now. I'm gonna tell you my residents come over here. It's not for the money, it's for the kids.
It is.
And we might not agree totally, but agree enough to move the needle. Change is hard to accept within itself. But I'm gonna repeat, if we're gonna get better, change. And that collaboration between the board and the superintendent and the state board, it must exist now, at this juncture of time. And like the chair said, I'm not getting into those test scores that you know it better than I do. So we don't need to get into that. All across the state, we have some issues. We'll just have to be in a different position this time than the others maybe. I am here to help, along with everyone else. But change is going to have to come in collaborative working between you and your superintendent. And that's all I have to say at this point in time, Mr. Chairman, and I hope the body understands where I'm coming, because I know where you're coming. I do. I got to be the 15th of this month. Ain't gonna be. Hopefully we'll be as calm as this. And until we start.
Madam Chair, we turn. Perfect.
Okay, I'm going, at this time, I'm gonna give, my fellow board members a chance to speak, and respond to what has been said tonight. And we can start with Ms. With whomever. Anyone have any discussion? Or did you want to discuss it first?
We want to thank you for coming to support Wellington School District. Yes, we know that change is good. Change is possible. We have scholars here that we want the best. I think that's why we all ran for these elected positions for our community. And I think that's why our community elected us in these positions, because they had faith in us to make decisions on their behalf that will be best for our scholars in our district. I'm all about collaboration with our entrance team. Collaboration goes both ways. Collaboration goes both ways. And I look at that as a positive thing. When we ask questions, it's because we get our packets and we do research. A lot of people sit in meetings and they don't ask any questions. Yes to everything without doing any research. I would find that not as a great board member. You must know and do your own research to know. Just like reading the Bible. You got to know what's going on and do your own reading. And so I take that and I do my own research. Then I'm looking at my board material. And so in turn, sometimes, many times I do have questions. And I think that's a good thing to be able to ask questions that should be able to be answered in a truthful manner, a positive manner, and things that are in the best interest of Weldon City Schools. So I look forward to this collaboration with the state. And I want to say thank you for your assistance.
Thank you for your comment. You know, one of the things I think years on the board in Gilbert County. District.
Mhm.
One of the things that I know is a problem with the board. Right? There's always a tension between what's a policy issue, which of course is the board's business, and what is an administrative issue. And I think inevitably there's some times when there's a tension point there where it's a little more difficult to identify which one of the two it is. And I think one of the things that's important here in this kind of discussion is, I think what we're saying is important that the superintendent and the administration get the benefit of the doubt if it's one that's a tension point, whether it's a policy matter or whether it's a administrative matter.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean you can't ask questions, obviously, but it does mean I think we're looking at, in this instance, sometimes if it's a close call, or if you're even asking the question, is this policy or administrative, then I think we need to think about it, that we give deference to the superintendent's recommendations, and that's what the state is signaling to this board, to be frank. I think if the board votes the way we have recommended, I think that would be the signal. Again, that's not to say you shouldn't ask questions, just to be better.
And just since you may have think about the word scholar that you use,
Mhm.
I stopped at one of your local convenience stores coming in town this afternoon. On the front page of the local paper is one of your scholars.
Mhm.
You know, hopefully it'll be more than that, depending on the one winner for that particular category. I just read the headline. I didn't read the details. But that's what you're talking about.
Exactly,
That's what you're talking about.
absolutely.
And that's what we are talking about. I like to see that whole front page with scholars.
I just heard you, I can say, I guess to defer on the side of the superintendent, if I see what you said correctly, you know, when we ask questions and when we have to make decisions. Living here, dealing, you know, with people in the community, you know, on a daily basis, you actually, you meet people, you know people, Weldon is small enough, everybody knows, you know, everybody. And I guess when you say give deference to, you know, superintendent in decision making, because, you know, Dr. Shotwell would be a state board, basically appointee. And I know I've learned from my school board, you know, training that the state offers. And I know you all are familiar with it as well. If a recommendation comes from any superintendent and it works good, it fails, then what you do is you actually put that down on the superintendent's evaluation. You know, you evaluate the performance of the employee, so, you know, recommendations and all of that. That won't exist at this point because the local board and no local board ever gets the opportunity to actually evaluate an interim superintendent from what I've learned. And I don't know if that has changed because I had not had to go to the, you know, the initial training since the last time I ran, just, you know, refreshers along the way, which, you know, we go to in September in the policy conference and so forth. So if we defer, as you said, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I want to know if it does not work, any recommendation, who holds the bag with that, because this board will not have the authority to evaluate. So where does that lie? I'm just asking for information. I'm not saying any recommendation would be good or bad. I'm just asking for clarity with that. I'm gonna turn it out. Right. You know, you're not getting a legal opinion. Okay. It's not the board will. All right.
The evaluations are generally done once a year.
Right.
And what usually your interim superintendent's only there for one year. So generally they're not evaluated.
Right.
Anyway, we do have one situation in Northampton County where that's multi-year. And that's the board's employee. And so the board has sought, asked the local board to complete the evaluation instrument and to provide that information to the state. So the feedback is part of that feedback is part of that evaluation. There is an opportunity for it in a multi-year
Right.
situation, but right now, Dr. Phelps.
Right.
is not in-
Right. And that won't take place until 2025 in what? April, May? That's when it would be, because I haven't heard any.
If he were to be here.
Right, right. And I only say that because I haven't heard a time frame. You know, you said that the committee's recommendation would be to continue. And I guess that would be past September, which the contract is for, because that would be the 6 months. September 30th would be 6 months. So hearing what you all are saying, you would like to continue that past. Well, right now it's through September 30th. Right. Whether or not it's extended past that time, it's subject to among other things to Dr. Shotwell deciding that that's, you know, that he would agree to do that. Right. We're not being so presumptuous. Jeff, we know what the timing would be beyond the department agreed upon. Okay. On the other hand, it might very well be the right thing to do to continue forward. So that's something, the board is not going to be bothered by input. So I'm not, that's what I'm trying to say. If you got input on something, our board would be glad to hear input from your board members. But I do have to say, we got the background that we know he can perform over a long period of time. And so your input will be important, right? Standpoint, what your observations are, but our input is also going to be important. Sure. If that's helpful.
I would just like to say, and I will, that I was giving everybody else an opportunity to speak. We do, as a board, we do recognize the low test scores in the district that our district will perform. That's school and teacher vacancy rates. And definitely the key leadership positions here at Central Services. And, it is not completely fault of the board. There has been some changes throughout the years. Dr. Shotwell, he came along and he has implemented some changes for the upcoming school year. Which I think that will make a difference somewhat. I do agree with you when you said that we have to have changes and we have to collaborate with each other in order for it to work. My situation is a little different. Well, all of us were elected on the board. And like I've said before, I feel like all 7 of us bring something special to the table. We all are here to see Weldon. I don't think any one of us want to see Weldon go down, state takeover, or all schools be schools. We're all looking for good out of all of our schools. It just so happened that we've had poor leadership. We've had, in a nutshell, that's what it is. That's what it's been. Not just on here in the district, but also on our part as well, because we have some fault in this. We're picking and choosing who was at the helm of our district. They weren't passed, some have not been good choices. We've made rational and hasty decisions in the past. And hindsight, they were horrible decisions. And it turned into just a catastrophe within our district. I feel like for the most part, we do work together. As Ms. Robinson said a few moments ago, asking questions. I may not ask a lot of questions at times. Some things I have knowledge of, and there are some things I don't have knowledge. But when another board member raises a question, it gets me to start thinking, something that I haven't thought about. So I'm not, and I don't want to be the type yes, I'm not the type, if I feel like in my heart that I don't want to go along with something, then I'm not gonna go along with it based off of the knowledge that I have. And I feel like we as a board shouldn't have to rubber stamp everything that someone brings forth to us. If you have reservations about something, then as a board member, we should step up and say that we have a reservation and have a discussion about why we think this certain way, or why we don't want to vote this way and vote another way. Then, like I said, a lot of times we've had discussions where we voted on something, and then after the fact, someone may say something, but when we're talking about this situation, I feel like that's the time right then to come out with what you know. And we discuss it then, not after the fact. Because when we do it after the fact, then that causes problems. Again, I said that I have so many things on my mind that I want to say. But I'm gonna stop right now and give other board members a chance, because I get fooled with talking about what's going on. Mainly because I ran, and you said it earlier, even when I ran for this board, for my seat on the board. Honestly, I had no idea that the board members received stipends. I did it because I'm a part of the board. I did it because I have a child in the system, and I want to see wellness in schools. It did me good, and I know it can do my son good as well. Not only my son, but because if my son is receiving good, all the rest of the kids are going to receive the same thing. And since the last few years, true, we've been going downhill instead of rising to the top. I want to see a change personally. I want to show the state, not only, I want to be a model district for the state. And I know that Weldon can be. We're a small enough district, yet we're powerful. We have good people in this district. A lot of good people have been ran away or pushed away. And then you have to go back and try to replace them with someone else and piece things together. At this point in time, our finances are not where they should be. But that's a whole nother story. And that's why I'm requesting to go into closed session before you all leave today. Because there's some things I would like to discuss that is going to involve naming personnel. So I'm gonna stop right there and give the floor to someone else.
Can I make one suggestion in response to your thought?
Yes.
I think I understood what you said about, I may have questions about it. So I got it. I have responsibility. You got questions about nice and right personnel matter for the board. I think most superintendents, expect Dr. Shotwell falls in the category. Bring those questions in advance of the meeting. Like you say, after the meeting is not the time to have the thought.
Exactly.
Bring them to the superintendent before the meeting. Maybe you're telling the superintendent something that he doesn't know. Or something that's certainly to consider, and maybe he's got a response to what your concern is that helps put some more context to it that maybe you think a little differently. But it seems to me that having those kinds of conversations beforehand are helpful.
I agree. And I can honestly say, Shotwell, I've talked to him more than any other superintendent since I've been on board. We've had conversations numerous times, discussing several things. And he is, for the most part, easy to work with, he sits and he listens. And I like that about him. But as Reverend Sykes and also Ms. Robinson said, we are from this community. And the community they saw something in us that wanted us to be a representation of what they would like to be. We are the advocates for our students. We're the advocates for our parents. And Weldon is unique. Mr. Hall, Dr. Hall, you work here. Weldon is unique in its own way. Always have been and always will be. And that's not to say, I think that everybody, again, all 7 of us want the best of the best for our district. Not just settle for the status quo. But that's what we've been doing, accept. And then at the back end.
And I wanted to say, Mr. Duncan, along with the comments that you just made, I expect any superintendent to make the best recommendation. And as a board member personally, I don't go to the superintendent telling the superintendent, I know X, Y, Z, A, B, C, because I expect the superintendent to do their due diligence before they make a recommendation to us. And I feel if I'm getting something on a recommendation, number one, the community should know about the recommendation before it's recommended. That's the first thing. That happens constantly. And in our last meeting, I told Dr. Shotwell, I knew your recommendations and had not received my packet. I don't know how it's disseminated. I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm saying to myself, if I'm getting it from and when I say education world, I mean from other districts where recommendations may be made. If I'm already receiving it and haven't been given my packet, I told Dr. Shotwell in the June meeting, I already knew. So if I already know the recommendation and I already know what comes attached with the recommendation, I'm saying to myself as a board member, certainly, if I got it from the realm of education, I know that's been talked about in the realm of education. And even though I'm not a career educator, but you all know from being on boards and Mr. Hall from currently sitting on board, Dr. Hall, people in communities, they talk, and people in education, they talk. And I'm not at all saying Dr. Shotwell was at fault, but anybody that's being recommended, they should have some sense of being reserved and showing some type of tact to give the superintendent opportunity to actually make the recommendation to the board. I'm just saying, so if I'm getting it ahead of time before recommendation, and if true observation or vetting candidates or however it is on a recommendation that is handled, I can't vote on anything that does not come to me. And this didn't just happen. It's been happening for a long period of time. It's disheartening.
It is.
As a board member, when people that are going to be recommended in our closed session are out telling the district that they're currently working in or neighbors, I'm going to Weldon. You've been sleeping on Weldon. I'm going to Weldon.
In their salary.
Yeah. And it had to come before the board. That's not
Professionalism.
at all. And I'm not saying that Dr. Shotwell has done this. I'm not saying that because I'm waiting on getting my packet, my information, but that has happened.
Using that as an example, is it your custom when that occurs? You said it's happened several times.
Oh, yeah.
You call the superintendent, let them know, I don't have your packet yet, but being told by multiple people that X is going to be recommended for this job before the meeting.
I have done that to previous superintendent, but when it happened, when the recommendations in the most recent meeting, that's when I told, Dr. Shotwell actually in that meeting, because and honestly, I had missed a meeting and had already gotten it and hadn't received my packet. And when I got to the meeting and, we started going through everything, I told Dr. Shotwell, I had already received this. And the week before, I was not at the school board meeting, the call meeting, and I couldn't get my packet. I wasn't there. So I didn't have the information, but I had already received it.
Yeah.
And,
Again,
I wish that wouldn't happen.
Communications are a big part of this.
Yes, I agree.
And so letting the superintendent know if something like that's occurring is always going to be important. So that's just an observation from this side.
Mhm.
And that scenario, sites that you just mentioned, happens frequently.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout public education. I know that. In some cases, of course, systems handle it differently. But that particular issue, it's not uncommon to go to Walmart in my area.
They're right.
Exactly. Be true about it.
Yeah.
To hear about her kind of public schools.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't know how to stop that, other than some cases, because the board makes the final decision.
Exactly.
The board makes the final decision, right? So I would be cautious to, if I were you, da. Now, that's just me talking there. But yeah, it's not unusual.
Right.
I'm just saying, it's not unusual.
And Ms. Hall, I agree with that 100%. And the way you just said it, that's the way I handle it. I don't have any knowledge of that. I haven't gone to a board meeting. I can't talk about it. And even if I did have knowledge of it, that's closed session. So I'm not, at liberty to discuss that with the general public. And, I just shun it all. I do just like you said, but it still doesn't change the fact, living in the community. And, you haven't gone to the board meeting, you haven't received a packet, and somebody is bombarding you with that. You trying to make groceries in Walmart or pick up some oil, whatever. It doesn't make you feel good, as a board member. And that's something, as you say, it's not just happening from time to time in Weldon. That happens, all around.
So I just wouldn't hold that against anybody.
Oh, no.
That's what I'm saying, I try not to.
Yeah.
I don't say exactly what you said to the superintendent. Yeah, it is sometimes it is stressful. But once again, we're back to the point. How do we handle it? Really do that.
I don't think anyone does.
Correct. Other than the professionalism that you talk about.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so, that's a whole different, now, and sometimes playing the devil's advocate, people don't know what they're saying. Some people running their mouth before they even know what's coming out.
I'm trying.
And, and once it's out, it's out. You can't take it back in.
That's
I wish I could say more, but I can't.
Yes.
But I'm gonna go back to my two key words, collaboration. And deal with one another in a helpful manner. That's what we're all about. And that's what we're with the thing. I hope we can come up with some solution, but we got to move forward. We have to move forward.
Oh, anyone else?
Change the tone.
Just based on what you said, I mean, I have a couple of questions, but I think some of them are more appropriate for closed session. But based on the comment you just made, Mr. Paul, you said that ultimately the board makes the final decision.
Sure, there's your instructions.
But is that the case with what you all are presenting tonight? My question is, so we decide because there is something that we are aware of, because there is something that is presented to us and we may not agree. If we disagree, if there's a 4-3 vote nay, 4 people saying no, they don't agree with it, is it ultimately the board's decision?
Yes. That's a change. But the board cannot, the board make a decision based upon holding something in a bay because of that.
Oh, no, not at all.
That's what I was saying. You left my words off, the
Okay.
last part. Holding someone accountable and not voting for that particular reason. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's happening here. But since you asked me, and then it might be better in closed session. As you say, but some change on how we do business, I feel is that has to occur.
Absolutely. And I totally agree.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
support that.
Right.
Anyone else?
I'll just add one other word if I can. The words that you added. Collaboration and change, I think you said. And in that same light, I view us being, I just want to add this word, being truthful with ourselves and just having true discussion, along with the collaboration piece. Because all of us, I mean, state board, whatever you go in at the end of the day, whatever decision you make, I look at it this way. I'm gonna be truthful to myself and I'm gonna be truthful to the fiduciary responsibility, that I took as being a school board member, an elected school board member. And when I go home at night, regardless of how long it is from sometime, I wanna know in my heart, I made a truthful decision. We had, true discussion, and we're looking for the best outcome, change and collaboratively. So, I want to do do all of that and be truthful, all at the same time with, the discussion that we are having about the change and how change actually looks, because change is gonna look different in Weldon than it looks in Hertford County. I mean, change in Hertford.
In other 100 counties.
Yeah, that's right.
Your point is well taken.
Yeah,
But,
I appreciate it.
But I hope you believe we're being completely truthful to you as we.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Our goal is to not catch you by surprise,
Sure.
all but to be completely truthful and straightforward in terms of what we
Sure.
discussed, which is what we did before and what we want to continue to do.
Right.
I would much prefer our next discussions to celebrate some success and
Oh,
to
sure.
not have governance kinds of discussions, if you will. And I think y'all would much prefer that too, a celebration.
That's what everybody wants.
It's always a good thing to be at. So that's what.
Okay,
So so it sounds like there is going to be need for a closed session. There's one on the agenda, only if needed to talk about specific personnel. I do think, and Allison, feel free to chime in, that really that's the only probably appropriate discussion point. There is a need to talk about specific people. If there are questions, of the process, about what happens next, you were trying to figure out where are the red lines, in terms of, what might trigger, future and further state board action. In my view, that's really all open session. So I do want to clarify before the question for motion. I mean, is there anyone who wants to and feels the need to discuss specific personnel, whether former employees, current employees, candidates for employment?
I think my question is, Mr. Hall just kind of clarified my question about that. But I guess my question is specifically more about, I guess the information that was brought to us in the past meeting. So mine would be, because it would be specific.
But information about a specific person, like an employee.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's kind of, what do you think, Allison, in terms of?
It's not for us.
Well, I would say employee, I would say candidate, I guess.
Whether it's a
Yeah.
candidate.
So what I think I'm hearing is that you want to tell the state board about specific people and why you decided what you did. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think, is that a question?
I'm asking you, is that what you're wanting to do, or do you want the state board, you all want to go in closed session yourself to talk among yourselves?
I would like that.
Just y'all to go?
No, but I would like to talk to you all also. Right. So that you will know and it'll be, you won't be in the dark.
So sorry, so to Allison's question, to Ms. Schaefer's question, sir. So it sounds like there's a desire to kind of explain past decisions
Yes.
about
Correct.
specific candidates and
Yes.
personnel. And that can't be open.
I'm hearing a discomfort from my side.
I'm not sure it's appropriate for
Specifics.
us to hear about your personnel issues. That I'm not sure that wouldn't be a violation of the personnel laws.
Well, you do have the authority to get any personnel or student information, just.
We do, but
What I can be,
The other purpose for the close would be if you all want to talk with me, try and find confidential conversation about what you've heard, or decide, what comes next. Certainly, something we can do.
I want to do that, but my comment pertaining to closed session with the state board is about, some of the stuff. I say in that respect that we were actually working with you all on, concerning candidates, if we would, because you actually sat in on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want to
Yes.
talk about.
And again, the state board does have a right to have that information.
Yeah.
The question
And
is-
that's where I'm coming from. It's not about personnel as far as, the district is concerned. That's about some conversation that you all actually had with us.
Would it make sense to have a brief 5-minute recess? Ms. Schaefer, do you want to talk with your clients?
Yes.
I'm saying I make a motion to. We have to make a motion to recess.
I mean, as vice chair, you can call it recess.
Okay.
Um,
We're gonna have a 5-minute recess at 6:46, and we will be back at 6:51.
You off mute?
You still here, Joe?
I'm having trouble getting the mute button to come up when I need it. Sorry. Yes, I am still here.
But you can still hear okay?
Yes.
Great.
You know, they checked the air today and everything's working.
You're cooler than we are here.
Too many people sitting in the same room. No, it's not.
Enable the hot seats.
Yes.
You have a capable Supreme Court, Nick. Another case.
Spring door.
Oh, do it, Jake.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good, yeah.
Don't have one.
I was saying to do that.
Hey, what's less than one? Yeah.
Yes. I know it all about. I didn't think, but you know what, to live on the sea. Right and wrong purpose. There's no, there used to be a date where you knew. Everyone here though, you know the something about good answer. That's what I'm saying. Everything was true. And he just do, I mean, my wife, it's always. I think he did. Look, you give me more. That's all his name. I saw you, man. Yeah. You can exchange. My name is Francis. She said, I'm gonna be there. Been thinking of ways.
Can anyone hear me?
Did you hear that answer? Did you hear her say yes? We can hear you.
All of a sudden, the sound went out and now it's back on. I don't know what's going on, but
I was had it muted. I think that happened on our end. Although, you know, I didn't do it because I don't know enough technology.
I don't know how you gentlemen keep it. I know.
I got the thin and the shortest, your name.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thanks, man.
Huh? Oh.
No, so much.
Can we have dinner for you all?
Thank you.
Before you leave, make sure you grab some.
If you need to go plate, I got some. If you need to go plate, I got some too. I know.
No, that's. This is.
I'm gonna extend the recess for about 5 minutes. You talking about Papa?
Yeah.
Is this still there?
Well, yeah, door when I came in.
Well, I think I'm-
My child still here. Yeah.
So I won't speak to him.
He works here in this building.
And yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's new fan.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So he and I have loud discussions.
Mhm.
Yeah, he gonna make it.
Mhm.
But he does coaches. No, he don't do some coaches.
He helps.
Yes, he helps with our team. Yes, he still does it.
Okay.
Most definitely.
Yeah, he gonna make it.
Yes.
Her back.
So I am.
Yeah, apparently he's playing on the US.
Oh, he made it look bad though.
Yeah.
He was 17.
Yeah, not 18.
Oh, 17.
I have not seen him play, but
What I
I'm
watched,
raving him.
I watched him play against. Yeah, he carried it to him. And by the way, he ain't that broke. He got that ball. We'll make me that ball man. That man is good. Good. Johnson.
And then change the whole world. How did the legislature? Because we can't do it. They have to give us authority.
Y'all over burning. Go ahead, just shine. Ain't no air moving in here. Y'all don't have an electric fan in the building.
You have
You need to bring it in here.
Do I have air? Uh-huh.
I bought more coats there.
Wow.
69 degrees there.
Oh, wow.
I found the air conditioning. About 60 degrees in there. All the air conditioning.
Bring it back.
Just want you to know it's out there.
That's what let us know. We have to meet in the middle room. I'm gonna make a motion.
Be pretty crowded in there.
But they found a fine for sign.
Right now, it's.
Yeah, it's for 4 years. When they signed. 4 years.
I'm rolling.
I'm like to say.
Okay, here we go. All right, thank you. So this one on them.
Right. Got in the heater. You were out, but if you want to buy the air conditioning, it's in the men's room.
I thought my.
Oh, right. You need to go in there.
Yeah, no.
That's what Kim said. Kim said we motion, so we have to leave it in the middle. Wait, that other one still in there? He said it'll circulate the air. Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Being sure I do it for the shoulders. I'm thinking what you.
Yeah, mm-hmm, it's circulating.
Yes.
It's a big difference.
Also, like. Bitter. No, how you feel what I'm doing. Oh, I'm fanning you from over here.
Thank y'all so much.
It'll be warm now. I wish I kept it on my office.
Oh, for our regular meeting.
Walk away.
Yeah, high school still be open. Yeah, see, you know.
You know what happened another way?
No, I'm sorry.
You know you're getting out of me.
You want me to open it?
Maybe kind of sparse these out there.
Yeah.
It might not be a whole lot of things in there except for.
And she understands.
Can we meet here? And turn the hair off yet?
I tell you, I know it's hard to believe, but this room was cold at one time. Fixed it all.
All right, so we're back in our open session meeting, and we will resume our discussion with the State Board of Education. Ms. Bird Robinson.
Oh, that's a question. So just to be clear and for the record, my question is, if there is a decision, if there is a recommendation that is brought forth by the superintendent, and as a board, we don't get the vote, just kind of going back to the question I had earlier. If it is not passed, if it is not approved with the 4-3, 4 in favor, at that time, is that when the state board will step in?
Would not say that, but would say it would depend on the circumstances.
Okay. And how would you know what the circumstances are? At that time, would you listen to our concerns? Or do you automatically just say, this is what the superintendent recommended, and we're taking this?
No, when I said depends on the circumstances, you have to find out what the factual information was, what the superintendent's perception was, what the board's perception was.
So I guess that would generate another
Discussion.
Would generate a discussion. We perhaps could do that by phone or virtually, but it would generate a discussion just to make sure there's an understanding about it. But no, it's not, I'm gonna say, I was on a board for 15 years and Gilbert County's obviously a whole lot bigger than Wellesley schools. So we had hundreds of recommendations a year. And I think over 20 years, we maybe as a board got together and voted down recommendations 20 times, maybe 1 to 2 a year at the most. And that's, and that typically happened when there was honestly communication when things came out by a board member to the superintendent before it ever got to the full board. Then there was a discussion, the superintendent at that point leaving it open because understood there were legitimate questions to be asked as opposed to one. So I have to say one of the things that's been a concern, and this has to do with the stability commentary that we had in terms of both superintendent stability and staff stability and setting the course that y'all want to set and being able to sustain it on a consistent basis. The information we have is that y'all do that perhaps more frequently than most boards do if we do a percentage kind of analysis, which gives the impression, right or wrong, again, right or wrong, gives the impression that you are entertaining more of the administrative realm than would be typical of a board. That's the best way I can think to say. So, and I'm not saying that you weren't right every single time it was, but I am saying it raises questions because it is with much greater frequency than would be the norm. So
I guess my concern and my decisions are always based on just information such as, is that person, what are they going to do differently for us? How the test scores from where they're coming from. How can anything be done any differently for our students here in local city schools? So all of that information is taken into consideration. And I would hope that the state board will take into consideration too when we are making that decision.
one of the things that's important to us that you have strong leadership. You notice I used the word to lead several times. And I believe in Dr. Shopwell, for the interim period, you've got somebody to lead and you can have a sense of creating some stability here. One of the reasons I think it's been hard for the district to maintain quality candidates you would like to see when you're interviewing for superintendents because there's enough turnover that superintendents talk. I'm in the 4-year world, so what we say is judges talk. So if you act like a jerk at a judge's court, all the judges are going to know about it, which is not a good career move, let's say. But superintendents talk. And so if there's a turnover, if there are, and it's not the only district where it's true, but if there's a district where there's significant turnover rate, that's not attractive to the highest quality superintendent. We are committed to bring to your attention the highest quality superintendent. And I believe we did that in terms of the interim search, but we're committed both short-term and long-term to try to get you candidates that are really strong candidates so that you are in a situation where you can have stability and have a sense of a relationship of trust with a superintendent, which I sense has not always existed, not always been a relationship of trust both ways, perhaps. So we're trying to create when we talk about change, that's a very fundamental change. It's probably the most important change it could be in terms of board work. So that's what we're talking about. So I'm not trying to question individual decisions or your thought process through there. I'm just trying to talk out very generally about how we all think about these.
And Mr. Duncan, I like that analogy you just gave because superintendents do talk. Lawyers, judges talk. Board members talk. across the state.
Yeah.
And board members will come to you at a conference. I heard such and such and such from our district has applied to come over there. Y'all may want to think twice about that. That happens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I like where you put that because there's conversation in each one of the realms. And then I take that example and I run with it to this respect. When you hear that from a board member in another district where that employee is currently working, and then you get to looking at the data and you see that what they said is correct. And then a recommendation comes to your district, it makes you think twice.
I want to say one thing about that. So I'm not disagreeing with what you said.
Right.
And I think you were talking about somebody other than the superintendent. Or educate somebody.
Well, if
Because
it
if you're
was
talking about
recommended period.
Yeah, you're talking about superintendent, you would have the final decision.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Right.
and that would be solely you, that wouldn't be a
Right.
recommendation.
Right.
Somebody else, but, one, I was always cautious about hearing things from other district board members. I think Allison could vouch for this. You should always take that with a grain of salt.
I agree.
For a variety of reasons. You always take it with a grain of salt, number one. And number two, I would say about data. I think you got to be careful talking about data as a judge of a candidate without knowing a whole lot more about the district. Just as you would say,
Sure.
somebody ought to be careful talking about our data unless they don't know a whole lot more about our community than simply there's the data and that's the only thing I'm going to look at.
I agree with that.
Because, if you're looking at data across the state of so-called low performing schools, which is a term I really do not like to use, just to be clear.
Right.
But in some respects, it's a zip code test. Where are the poorest zip codes in the state? And that's where you're going to find the data that's most difficult to deal with. There are exceptions to that. They're really rare.
Right.
And so, you can have, I've often thought some of the most marvelous educators and leaders, principals of schools, are people who are leading schools that are rated low performing, but they are exceeding expectations. They're not meeting expectations. They're exceeding expectations for their kids every single year. Those people are saints who should kiss their feet. They're getting kids who are already in a difficult spot and they are pulling them up, not fast enough to all of a sudden meet your randomly selected level of what's satisfactory performing. They're bringing children up. They're caring about children. They're making a difference. Children. So I think people have to be very careful about understanding data from other districts. It's not just looking at, one of the most disturbing things to me when I look at data is to see a school that has very high proficiency growth, or very high proficiency rates, and they don't meet growth. And that's true around the state. There are examples of that. So you got the smartest kids who don't need an exceptional year of growth, who can make A for the school, but they're being disserved just as much as your children are being disserved if they're in an F school and they're, and they're not getting to the place where you want to. Data is very complicated, and I think all of us should be extraordinarily cautious in understanding. And I've spent a lot of time with data over a lot of years statewide and locally. And I think you have to have a real depth of understanding. So always be careful about that as well. I think this is the other thing. You probably didn't want to hear all that.
No. I love that example because personally speaking, I think that can be applied to one of our schools right here in Weldon. Have the best and brightest, as some would say. And it doesn't appear, so like that. That's very
The
true.
bottom line is we need to be thoughtful.
Yeah.
We all need to be. Yeah, great.
I just want to make a statement as someone who's done a lot of superintendent searches and done a lot of work with personnel and over the almost 40 years I've been doing this. I think it's very important to have a process that is thorough when you're looking at candidates and the vetting of candidates is thorough. But not every piece of information that comes in about a candidate, and this is from experience, is credible. What you look for is consistency in how someone is recommended. There's not a superintendent in the state that doesn't have people who don't like them because their kid got suspended or they lost their job. You know, so you have to really be careful about the quality of the information you're getting. And it's important, I think, to share that with the superintendent and let him or her explain or research further that information. And so that's the kind of stuff that builds trust with the superintendent and gives you a quality process where you're coming out with candidates that have been well vetted, that not everybody's gonna love, and some people have not yet things to say about it, but you don't always want to talk to, you know, the naysayers, because we all have that. You know, so I think it's just a question of a quality process and communication with the superintendent when you hear something, instead of people feeling like they can come directly to you and vent their frustrations. And is that fair, Mr. Superintendent? Is you need to have a process where your concerns are addressed and information is shared with the superintendent so he can then. Because you want a good decision, but you're never going to get 100% happy people because hard decisions have to be made.
But bottom line, we want to be in this with you for the long term to help you get to leadership, not just interim leadership, but long-term leadership that brings great possible strength and trust. So a cohesive relationship. Because that helps kids.
So I could just ask on behalf of my board members, I think one of the things that I'm trying to get at, I think something that'd be helpful. To get an understanding of where the red lines, and I understand you probably can't say where those are, might not know, it's fact specific. But you mentioned, Mr. Duncan, that might be helpful here to one or two decisions a year where you have to maybe cross that line into the administrative superintendent recommendation, personnel or otherwise. Could you share some examples of what you think is to that level? Because that might be helpful for my clients. Say for their, and one thing that I think is important that I heard him say, well, then the board's going to retain their authority. Take recommendations seriously. If they can vote no, they should have a specific reasons for doing so. But what are some examples from y'all's perspective of the thoughts of the same?
That's hard to give examples, but I give just an idea. So let's just say, I don't know if this is true or not. But let's say there's a competition between Weldon and Roanoke Rapids, two smaller districts close to each other. There's probably been some exchange of employees at different times through the years where one's worked with one and then worked in the other, that kind of thing. Somebody gets to the place where I don't want to hire them because they're from Roanoke Rapids and I don't like them. Their school system and, you know, their competitors are, they've done us dirty on something somewhere along the line. So I don't want to hire. That's not a good reason not to hire. That's not a perfect example, but just ask for example, that's kind of thing. There's got to be a deeply seated educational reason why you wouldn't hire someone. Or a character reason. You know, the character reason can matter, but the character reason needs to be substantial. Obviously, that needs to be brought to the superintendent. Or if you really have a legitimate character reason, like there's been some criminal conduct somewhere, that's something that the superintendent needs to know about before you get into a full consideration of the recommendation. But from an educational standpoint, there has to be a really sound educational reason to not want to support a recommendation. Or in the case of the business manager, sound reason for why they are not able to really be up to the task for a CFO. And I'll just add, Mr. Hawk and Ms. Camden's can second this. There's a real difficulty finding CFOs in this state. Oh, yeah. Superintendent Shotwell certainly do that, but it's extraordinarily difficult. It's a big deal to get a good CFO. It's really important to get one. So, you know, I won't say that we can't afford to be picky. This is an important position. The flip side of that is you can't afford to be picky. because, you have a purple suit and I don't like purple. I mean, obviously something terribly extreme there, but you just can't afford to be, you need a good CFO. And if they're got a personality that's sort of nerdy, but they're good at the numbers, then you need somebody who's good at the numbers. It'll help you. But it's just using different kinds of things.
Oh, I have a question. Now that, did they answer you all's question?
Yeah.
Um. How is it looked upon? Because I've heard several comments from different people about our district accepting, and you can't help where people are coming from that are applying for jobs here. But if it's a neighboring district, that you have so many people coming from that neighboring district that won't come to this district. How is that? Like I said, you can't help if they won't come here, but that doesn't look good. Because it sounds like he's stealing from another district.
I don't think you can look at that.
He was right next door to me.
Right. We took all the best teachers Rockingham County could produce. No.
Oh, okay.
Actually, Guilford County was a big donor to other counties around the truth.
That's true too.
And there's many superintendents in the state who started as Guilford County educators. So it's something we're happy about. But no, there's not a reason not to. If somebody has an interest in the job, that's not your problem. That's, if they fit your needs, you should not be reluctant to recruit them to your position.
Okay.
You realize the other districts might well be recruiting yours, and probably have at some. So, there's not a prohibition against.
But I would
Superintendents,
Go ahead,
I'm gonna say you as an interim and Rodney as a superintendent, talk about that.
That would be, with the scenario that you demonstrated. I would be sticking my chest out of the book with your district. And we're doing all I can to attract employees, if there are good folks that we need at certain places. You know, I wish I had that problem.
Well, the problem
We
is,
deal with Virginia, on northeast and south. All the systems down that deal.
well, a lot of the problem that we have is people come here, and get their pockets filled
Yeah.
and leave.
Yeah.
And we are a district that, to me, and it's been said, well, we'll pay. Unpaid. So I just want to know, was it frowned upon with the state board? Based on going back to what you said earlier, Mr. Hall, about collaboration and changes. My main thing is, and I say it all the time in my board meetings, we as a district, we're not serving the whole child. And I have a problem with it. I do. Because every child deserves the best. No matter where they come from, who they came from, they deserve the best. And we're not serving the whole child. So, I'm moving forward with the collaboration and changes that are going to occur. I would like to see the whole town within Wellington School District. So I just want to go on, let's just say that. I do have a few more questions before we move to the next step, and my questions are, how long will Dr. Shotwell's appointment last, since you all are appointing him?
Well, right now, through the end of September, which is consistent with the contract, to the extent that, if we have a longer period of time, that would be subject to obviously Dr. Shotwell agreeing to that, and, but that's certainly something we will explore, but I don't think we can say too definitively beyond the term of the contract right now.
Okay. My next question is, what other support can you all provide both the schools?
Well, there's a district team, I'm going to turn to Rodney to talk about that collaboration that can occur with the district team, because that's an important aspect of the support.
Yeah, talk about the DPI.
Yeah.
Yes, there's turnaround section at DBI. We've got, like, Dr. Tillery, I know y'all seen her out at school when you've gone out there. Because she was assigned to, the middle school, the elementary school. And because the high school was merging with the middle school, and then we kind of get an extra bonus there. So she's been working with them, just kind of asking them questions about, the type of schedules that we're putting together. What are we gonna be doing for our math instruction? What are we doing for our English instruction that's upcoming here? Is it gonna be done with fidelity? How are we gonna support our teachers to make sure that that's gonna happen? So we've been getting that dialogue back and forth on that. I've been very pleased with the assistants, Dr. Head, she left. But she spent 2 or 3 days down here just working with me, trying to help me out, trying to work through some of the, as we have people in positions that are vacant. How can we do this? The financial folks from DPI and North Carolina ASBO has been a big help for me because we've got somebody new in accounts payable. I mean, yeah.
Oh,
Well, Pam retired, remember?
I know, but who was new? We haven't voted on anyone.
Well,
Get into that here in open session.
But see, but you don't do that with teachers. You're not gonna wait till the next meeting. What happens is if you don't like the teacher that we hired, the next day after the board meeting, we go down there and say, hey, sorry, it didn't work out. Bye. But you can't do that with a business operating like this. I think that administrative positions, those high level positions are definitely the ones that y'all need to have approval of before anybody starts to come in there. But I mean, custodians and teacher assistants, teachers, those are folks that are out there touching kids every day, working with them. And, we can't afford to leave those things vacant. I mean, I think it's also been the way it's been done before I got here too.
That's the problem, that's the problem that I have.
It was shared. I'm saying it was shared with us. Right.
What was shared?
Information was shared. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't have a question, but my comment is going to be that, and this is a problem I've always had. Long before you came, Dr. Shopton. And I've always had this problem. I feel like as a board member, I should be privy to information. And I feel like I've been left out a lot of things.
It's not an uncommon thing that comes up on a board. I have to say that's not the first time I've heard somebody say that. Sometimes some board members may say, no, there's plenty of information. One person feels like, well, I don't feel like I'm getting all of it. Or sometimes many people will say, I don't feel like I'm getting it. And the thing that I can say is I think it's important to have communication with the superintendent and the board to make sure the communications system is in place, try to make sure all board members get information at the same time. Because if one board member gets information, the others don't get it, that sometimes leads to a board member thinking I'm being left out, which is not a healthy thing for a board member to like being left out.
Then especially something, so when did the school going to close? I mean, I don't know.
I like to say one thing before we move in there. Solution to our dismay. I like to fix things. I think it would benefit us all with Dr. Shaw to move forward and meet with him as a board and let him know what our objectives are for this upcoming year. So he'll know how we feel. That hasn't happened. So he doesn't know what our expectations are for the district. And it's kind of hard to move if he doesn't know what our expectations are.
Good two-way conversation.
Exactly.
You should hear his.
Exactly.
He can hear yours.
Exactly. And that way we can find a compromise on where we will move forward together. That hasn't taken place between the board and our interim superintendent. And I feel that is necessary for us to be able to move together in tandem for the betterment of our
And I hope it's not really a compromise, but rather an agreement.
An agreement, most definitely.
That's
But that's what compromise is. We meet, when you bring your idea, I bring, he brings his idea, and we find a common ground that is positive. I think that will be beneficial.
But I would like, excuse me, to say this. With any person that is being proposed to be hired, I think it is a disservice to the employee and the employer. If someone starts a job and then the board does not approve it, then you got to go to them and tell them that that's not fair on either side. I don't think we should do that. Recommendations should come to the board for approval. As you said, the board has the final say. I would hate, and I use that word to that extreme. I don't hate. I'm saying I would hate for an employee to come to Weldon because the superintendent does have the authority to employ somebody, but it's per board approval. And then the board doesn't approve that person. And then the superintendent got to go and tell them, well, you don't have a job, and they've given up their job, where they were. And now they're out in the cold. I would greatly hate for that to happen to anybody. And that has never been, since I've been
It also
on board.
tells folks, don't resign from your other job until nothing is final, until the board approves them there.
Right.
Now, some of them say, well, you know what, we're moving to the area.
Right.
And they, I want to come there, I want to do this. I mean, 9 times out of 10, unless there's something egregious, because sometimes a resume will tell us a whole lot. Sure. About a person.
Sure.
And, and we have to do our due diligence to make sure that if we don't get a recommendation saying to talk to their most recent supervisor, the one they're working for, red alert, Captain. That's a problem.
Right.
And so, and they're obligated, the other districts are obligated to tell us if there is something that we need to know that is against one of the teacher standards.
Yeah, I get that. I guess if I want to, and this is probably not the time, but I heard about an employee in central office. And I'm not going to get in as far as that. This is my first time hearing it tonight. And evidently that person is already working, and that wasn't, I don't know what kind of move that was. I heard about it tonight. I guess we'll get more information in our regular.
I was gonna make a session so we don't vary.
Yeah.
You can discuss that.
Yeah, yes.
I would just say 2 things to that. One, I think that is something that's certainly appropriate to talk about in close, but maybe not in this meeting. It's
Right.
not really concerning you all who are here tonight.
Right.
Thursday. I mean, the second is too, while it's rare, there is in your board policies a delegate. This is typical. It's the actual model policy, but the superintendent had to fire in between board meetings when it's necessary.
Right.
Subject to and contingent on board approval.
Right.
Right.
Well, you're right. If the board ends up not approving it, obviously be an issue for the person who made the job. But that's why it's critical to make sure it's clear when that happens with the person. This is all subject to further future board review. That's typically what happens in those situations.
It is what would have happened. Or that standard is that you would tell them not to do nothing.
Sure.
Can I make this suggestion? Because some of this is now going into, well, I'm less focused on flows, but process for the board. Allison has done board training for other districts as we've been discussing them, and a lot of these questions go directly to board responsibilities, duties, how you go about it. She would be glad to come and provide a board training session so that you can go through these kinds of questions with somebody who's.
We've
As she
requested
indicated.
that to happen.
That was my next question.
All right, well, very good.
When was
Well,
that gonna
we would like to volunteer. Although she's been at it almost 40 years, she's only 39. I don't know how she's done it, but she's got a lot of experience, and she's, I think she would very much be glad to do that. And I think you would get a lot out of it. Owls do, when I listen to owls.
And she shared it with us that she would do it, but we didn't get I don't know where we are.
But
She shared with us that she would do that training, but I said, I don't know where we are.
Let's get
She
it
said she
scheduled.
would-
Can we,
yeah, it needs to be
do
scheduled.
I need to reach out to you, Ms. Shea?
Or you can go to the superintendent if you want to do that. You just to coordinate your schedules or however you normally do that.
However you have
Okay.
Dates figured out.
Or through Jason or however it works.
Okay.
But I mean, it would be helpful to know, kinds of things that you would want training. And obviously, you know, there's a lot of old school law book old stuff. So, some guidance about what would be most helpful and maybe your superintendent can make some suggestions or your board attorney suggestions. I'm hearing a lot of questions about personnel, for example, right now, what the process is for that. And, it's, like I said, you know, done a lot of training for the years, so I'm happy to.
I would like that.
And before we, I think we're close to a point. Stopping your back. What was that? For my own clarity. Help me with this because it's gonna come up Thursday. But who's your CNI person?
We don't have one.
You don't have one. Who's your finance?
Dr. Sharp.
Who's your personnel?
Mr. Holmes.
Do you have an EC? Wait, that's.
He's in.
Yes. But we need someone for sure.
And your EC director?
And here. Dr. Shotwell.
And do you have any school-based administrative positions?
Yes.
Here's my question. Here's my question. What are we gonna do together? Fill those positions as soon as we can find that we,
Are they advertised?
I don't know, I'm just answering.
So
I'm asking right now.
5 people, but we need a full-time HR person who is actually here to help support.
Because you can't open school like this. And be efficient. Not with these men. And that's my question. How are we gonna do it? We don't have a whole lot of time. So, how are we gonna do it? That's to you as a board. So I know about how to react. But I'll be part of that voting process come Thursday. Do you have a plan in place? I mean, you knew about your position. Okay, now what we gonna do?
Well, we have an interim HR person. What is that person doing? I'm saying as far as recruiting.
I don't get it.
That's a whole discussion. I mean, like the idea of the job fairs and things, those things just don't work anymore. I mean, it's really word of mouth. People want to go to places where it's a nice place to teach. And I mean, but it's like a church. Church is just people who are in the building. You could be in a covered, outpost, but you could have one heck of a church going on out there. And I think, you know, one of the things that we're trying to do, I mean, I had a parent today trying to take their kid to another district. And I said, we're gonna get into this, we're gonna get into this, we're gonna get into this. She said, still gotta go. She said, but we've had too many of this, and this. And I said, well, I promise you, we all trying to work on that. I said, and then she said, when she was leaving, I was like, look, if Jesus talks to you while you're in the car, you just turn that thing around, come back here and let's talk about it. She ain't come back, but maybe she'll think about it tonight, come back in the morning.
You
But I
know,
mean, I'm being serious. I mean, that's what you have to do. I mean, we got so much potential. I love these children here.
We do.
I mean, they have been nothing but respectful and nice every time I walk into a classroom, and they just want to learn. That's all. They just want to learn. And we deserve to teach them. I mean, that's the basis there.
I think Wendell's questions illustrate the fact that I used to reference, we have a Bible on fire here. We do.
We do.
True to the urgency of what
What are
we're
we
doing.
going to?
So, we're not asking you to answer the question, what are we gonna do tonight? We are saying, y'all, people in this room have got to really go to work on this because we got to get this worked on and we got to work collaboratively get together, and I'm not talking about us here, I'm talking about with the superintendent and the coordinate, obviously we'll help where we can, but we're not, this is not what we do as a board, so. So we just have to really pull together, and we don't have a whole lot of room for dissent, because our focus is those children. That's our focus. We gotta get them this support.
I don't know if this is appropriate, and we may have to wait until next week for our regular scheduled board meeting, but we need a retreat.
I was gonna ask.
We need a retreat, and we haven't had one. What's that? We haven't had, I'm sorry, we haven't had one, a real retreat in a long time. And we need to sit down and talk amongst each other and come up with a plan. Set goals, as Ms. Robinson said earlier, and move forward. I'm willing to do so. I'm ready to, I've been ready, so I'm running. And, we just want to work and make Weldon best district.
And I also want to say too, I really do enjoy working for all of you. Because I know what you want, I know what you're wanting. But yeah, it's kind of like, when I was younger, I had a job, I had a focus, and sometimes that was not a very attractive thing to a potential girlfriend. Because they feel like they got to fix something. But then I say, but you're going back to this guy who was doing all kinds of crazy things behind your back. And it's like the relationship I know that you all have had with previous leadership has not been there. And that trust factor is like the Grand Canyon. And my goal, I even said this to Allison when she first asked me about this. I said, I felt like that was one of the things because, I've been doing this for 21 and a half years. And I want to help. I've hired over 150 principals. District office. Now I have been blessed. The people that come work for me, my district office stay. And it does make a big difference. And that's one of the things that my goal was to build that trust so that you all can see that this is what we need to have for leadership and with the superintendent board relationship. And we get people in that are going to have that same characteristic. We all got to be together, and I do. I feel like that all 8 of us can make some great things happen.
Can I add something here? This
Yeah.
is Jill. I would, the one thing that I think maybe hasn't been said or thought about is, and we've just all agreed that this is a really urgent situation right now. School is coming. There are a lot of vacancies and perhaps other things that need to happen quickly. And we have helped you find a really talented interim superintendent who is good at these kinds of situations. And I would say Alan used the word lead a lot, and we've just heard about trust. I think in order for you to let Dr. Shotwell lead and make change, there's got to be some level of trust here. And you don't have a year to build that. You've got to trust him a little bit with some of these recommendations and decisions that he needs to make to get things moving and change happening.
I agree.
And accountability. Holding
Yes, absolutely.
out for those recommendations that you're bringing to me. And I don't care whether you're here for 6 months, 6 days, 6 minutes. I still can hold you.
How about that 6 minutes, man?
Well, if you bring me a name, then, and I'm gonna, move on that name, then
That's right.
it's you.
That's right. And if it doesn't work out, y'all won't have to tell me.
But you got to let him lead.
You gotta let it be. You gotta let it be. I was just trying to figure out, good grace, if I had to face this, opening school.
And I want to thank everybody for changing the budget codes for the 24-25 school year, making a 25-digit budget code as opposed to one that we've been used to now for, I don't know, let's say 30 years. Because I've got to put all those into the computer.
Yeah.
Before I can open up and really start running with our finances for 24, 25.
Anything we can do to help.
I know, man. I told Jennifer when she met with us in the Sand Hills, thank you so much for that. But we're gonna do it. I mean, it can be done.
Our business finance believes it will be better in the long run. But it will be painful in the short.
Sure.
I think that's.
I think I heard that too, whenever you all are changing the second, 4-digit numbers from 100 series to tens and fives. And we did it, and we got used to it now.
See, but that's not you all, because Wendell and I were here for that.
Oh, that's right. Y'all were on the board whenever all that stuff was happening too, so you understand.
If all else fails, blame the state board.
But I just hope you're successful in finding good people in a short period of time to fill the positions.
That's the key word.
And I agree, personnel is critical.
Absolutely.
Critical.
Absolutely.
So, Bill, thank you for those comments.
One more question, just for clarity. As far as you mentioned earlier, when you started off and telling us about, Dr. Shotwell and, he's gonna be making the same salary and should have been at the same benefits. But I would like to know, are you all going to contribute to this salary?
No,
And why not?
we don't have the resources. We're not budgeted for that. We don't have the resources. And to the extent that you're asking, do we have something hidden away in the pillow cushions, we've asked. We don't. We haven't.
But we will still be.
So we expected that.
Trying to look up, that's just. And frankly, it's disappointing. I think I can share that on behalf of the board. Statute assignment on compensation. You know, the state board's own policy, which is not a rule, and it speaks to the state portion of the compensation. I mean, if I heard the recommendation correctly, it would be to appoint Dr. Shotwell as interim, assign him the duties of finance officer, then to direct him for his salary, including local amounts to you to pay him. But, I think for my board, that's just. And I understand
We have
the state-
asked.
I understand the state board.
Yeah.
The local board, they've happened elsewhere, there's that kind of agreement.
There is that
Maybe it's
kind of
something
agreement.
Allison and I can talk.
There is that kind of agreement elsewhere. But you're not paying anything beyond what you already agreed to pay, just to make that, there's no additional.
I think any additional funds coming from wealth, it's critical for them. While they've been able to identify the budget, it's money that could be used elsewhere. And whether it's for free. Because there is a local portion that.
Jason, I'm gonna be completely frank. We have, I think, personal view that's shared by many, the most important work that the state board is doing is working on turning around schools and school districts. And we are grossly funded to do that. But we're making a real difference in a lot of districts with virtually no compensation. These board members are paid nothing, not a dime. And I don't take any expenses either. So we go around the state, different places, and we work enormous numbers of hours, try to do the right thing, and we're being successful. So I appreciate what you're saying. And if it was money, trust me, we've asked the legislature for money. If it's money, we certainly would want to be able to give you a different answer. But the honest answer is no. There's no sense trying to pretend like it's different than that.
We are giving you our
The
time
clarity is that
and our,
through September, is that something that you intend to continue long term?
You necessarily have to continue long term, depending upon how the relationship goes, as to what the arrangement will be. And by that, I mean, if Brian not here, Dr. Shaw, not here after September, then we have to look at what the arrangement is. So, but I'm sorry you're disappointed. I understand, Brian, you're disappointed, not paying anything beyond who you are. So that's just a circumstance we find ourselves in.
And you, again, you are, we talked about the other support you're getting and we're pulling people in to the extent we have them. And getting you resources from the department and from the regional centers. We are trying to provide that. And I'm not gonna charge for my training either, so there's other things that you're getting beyond just salary contributions.
And we would love to have the resources to give you a different answer, but the legislature has not seen fit despite requests for that to provide those. And I think they get a tremendous amount of benefit for the very limited funds that are provided. But the key words are very limited funds that are provided.
I do want to share impact my, that's true here.
It's true in every district in the state. I think everybody's pressed, particularly even more so with the ESSER funding ending at the end of September, and therefore to the extent that helped over the last 3 years, it's no longer there to provide the same support. So I appreciate that very much. The fact that that's, it's a difficult economic time for the boards and for childhood care too, as well as me.
And we have a lawsuit that's been going on for 25 years. It's about that. It's not resulted in any additional resources being spent. Unfortunately.
And if there's a decision that ends up being,
That's the way I.
yeah, if there's a decision that ends up being district specific, it's possible, well, the city could receive some additional funding in that way, but I don't know. It's Halifax County is certainly part of it. Yep. And I'm not gonna forecast what the Supreme Court's gonna do. That will be, I went to the argument, I was there for the oral argument, Supreme Court, but it's old out. I would not be overly optimistic in any forecast for you to do about that, unfortunately.
Chairman Duncan, like an opportunity for our board to consult. That's for the moments.
Okay, do you still need us after that?
That would be my question. I think so. We've heard a lot today. It probably makes sense to go on the players. If you have any questions for me, I do. Unless you feel like there are questions or discussion.
We didn't want to go into close with them.
We need to discuss.
It would be different. But I think the question is, can they be excused? I would think yes. I think this is really just kind of us talking about what you've heard and next steps. Unless you feel like board members, there'll be a reason to want to continue leading this.
We've talked with State Board's attorney, so what I shared with you when I,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
can we discuss that or no?
So I think the purpose of this would be really for you all to talk with me about next steps, not necessarily personnel information with the state.
Excuse us, because we're trying to get understanding. If you all, if we go to a short recess, just before we excuse you all.
Yes. You need us to step out?
No, I'm gonna start first.
So we're gonna have to break that. We're gonna have to
No,
break that.
yeah, I'll come right back. We can't, yeah.
Recess for how long?
Oh, 5 minutes. You muted.
Be sure to let Miss Candace, Miss Candace,
Yes,
did I get it right?
yes, you did.
Okay, that was my first try. Our tech department, they're going to do a quick mute, so you may not hear us talking. We come back in like 3 minutes.
Okay, my apologies, but I've only got a couple more minutes that I can be with you. So, but thank you for letting me know that.
Okay, all right. She's dead.
This time, we would like to, on behalf of the board, we would like to thank the State Board for coming out this evening to share this information with us, which you all intend to recommend on July 11th to the State Board. And we thank you for your insight and your, like I said, recommendations on what we should do moving forward. And at this time, I would like to go into closed session to get for time attorney-client privilege. And you all be free to go for the evening. Thank you all again. And then includes you, Dr. Shotwell, and also you, also Ms. Jenkins and Jason will stamp the time that we go in. And also you all, I'm sorry.
I thought you were gonna make a technical statement.
I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Thank-
for clarity, for the minutes and for any who might be watching. And the board exit split is the only thing to do with me to it.
Right.
And I'm happy to take it.
Thanks.